Ferrari's secret weapon for Hamilton, revealed ahead of his best track on the calendar. There is a wing sitting in a garage in Maranello right now that Ferrari has already built, already tested, and still has not raced. For weeks, engineers have carried it to circuits and left it in the truck. That is the contradiction sitting at the center of this weekend. A team fighting to close a 73-point gap in the Constructors' Championship has, reportedly, been holding back a genuine performance upgrade. Why would a team under this much pressure sit on a card it could already be playing? The circuit changes that calculation. Lewis Hamilton arrives in Budapest holding 8 wins at the Hungaroring, more than any driver in the history of the race. No other track on the calendar has been this kind to him, and according to multiple reports building through the week, this is the race where Ferrari is finally prepared to unleash the piece they have been sitting on. So the question is simple, and worth asking plainly before anything else. What exactly is this upgrade? And does it actually change the championship equation? Or is it being oversold by a paddock that badly wants a story heading into the summer break? Ferrari is not chasing points for the sake of points right now. They are second in the constructors' standings. But the gap to Mercedes stood at 73 after Spa, a margin that does not close on hope alone. In the Drivers' Championship, Hamilton sits second as well, 45 points behind Andrea Kimi Antonelli, who arrives in Hungary already guaranteed to leave for the summer break as championship leader regardless of what happens this weekend. That guarantee alone tells you something about how dominant Mercedes has been through the first 10 rounds of 2026. Antonelli has taken pole in every single Grand Prix this season, converting 8 of those 10 poles into wins. Ferrari's only victories have come from Hamilton in Barcelona and Leclerc in Silverstone, both immediately following upgrade introductions. That pattern is not a coincidence, and it is the reason so much attention is now on whatever Ferrari is bringing to Hungary. When a team's wins line up almost exactly with its upgrade calendar, the upgrades stop being background detail. They become the actual story of the season. Here is where the layers start peeling back, because there is more sitting underneath this story than a simple upgrade announcement. Start with the name. Multiple outlets have referred to Ferrari's delayed update as the Macarena wing, a nickname attached to a rear wing concept built around a rotating or morphing flap element. Before explaining what it does, it matters to understand where this idea actually came from. Red Bull introduced a similar reverse wing concept earlier this season, only to abandon it and return to a more conventional specification at Spa after reported concerns about the safety and reliability of the mechanism at high speed. That is not a small detail. It means Ferrari is reportedly persisting with a wing philosophy that a direct rival just walked away from, in public, mid-season, after presumably investing real development time into it. According to sources close to the team, Ferrari's version is based on a different underlying concept than Red Bull's, and has not shown the same issues across what has reportedly been extensive mileage in testing. Ferrari, in other words, is said to believe they solved a problem that beat somebody else. That claim has not been independently verified by any regulatory body or rival team, and should be treated as exactly what it is right now, a confident internal assessment, not a confirmed fact. It is worth remembering that Formula One history is full of concepts a team insisted were sound right up until they were forced to abandon them on track, sometimes mid-race weekend. Confidence from an engineering department is not the same as proof from a stopwatch. Now for what the wing is actually said to do. Reports indicate the update is targeting increased downforce alongside lower drag, an unusual combination that would normally require a trade-off between the two. Some reporting has gone further, suggesting a straight-line speed gain in the region of 3 km per hour. If accurate, that is a meaningful number heading into a circuit that punishes cars in the corners rather than on the straights, which raises its own question about why Ferrari would prioritize straight-line efficiency here at all. That question has an answer, and it is the deeper layer underneath the surface number. The Hungaroring is one of the hardest circuits on the calendar to overtake on. Track position, effectively, is the race. A car that struggles in qualifying but recovers over a race distance which has been the general shape of the SF26 all season, runs into a wall at a track like this one because there is nowhere to pass. The SF26 has generally looked stronger over a race distance than over a single lap, and that imbalance is precisely why Ferrari needs a wing that helps in qualifying trim without giving up race pace. A 3 km/h gain on the straights, if it holds up, would not be about outright speed. It would be about giving Hamilton and Leclerc a fighting chance at a grid position where none previously existed, on a track where grid position decides almost everything. There is a further wrinkle worth naming here, because it changes how the wing's straight-line gain should actually be read. Pirelli is bringing the C3, C4, and C5 compounds to Budapest, the softer end of the tire range, and softer tires tend to reward a car that can protect its rear axle under braking and traction, rather than one built purely for outright pace. If Ferrari's new wing genuinely lowers drag without sacrificing downforce, it should, in theory, ease the load on the rear tires through the technical middle sector, which is where races at this circuit have historically been won and lost. That is a reasonable engineering inference, but it remains an inference. Nobody outside the team has timing data to confirm it yet, and it will not exist until Friday practice. There is also a second piece to this story that has received less attention but may matter just as much. Reports out of the Belgian Grand Prix suggested Hamilton was running new brake pads that weekend, a switch away from the carbon industry components he used for years at Mercedes toward Ferrari's Brembo setup, which Leclerc had already tested earlier in the season at the Canadian Grand Prix. Adapting to unfamiliar brakes mid-season is not a minor adjustment for a driver at this level. Braking points, feel, and confidence under threshold braking are some of the most personal calibrations in a driver's relationship with a car, and Hamilton has effectively been relearning that relationship in public, in real time, while also fighting for a championship. He has also mentioned a change of data engineer around the same period, meaning two of the most fundamental working relationships a driver relies on, the person reading his data and the components under his foot, have both shifted within the space of a few race weekends. That detail connects to the human core of this entire story, and it is worth sitting with directly. Hamilton did not arrive at Ferrari this year for incremental progress. He arrived to win. He is 45 points behind a rookie in his first full season, a rookie who has been on pole every single weekend of 2026. That is not the scoreboard Hamilton pictured for himself when he made this move, and every technical decision the team makes right now is happening against that backdrop of pressure. Spa did not help. An incident in the third free practice session cost him confidence heading into qualifying. He picked up a 5-second penalty from stewards for the incident, and after a wet start, turned his grid position into a rolling start. He finished the race in 7th. He said afterward that the mistakes cost the team points, but that he was looking ahead to Hungary to get back to business. Those are the words of a driver who knows exactly what is at stake and is choosing to frame the disappointment as temporary rather than defining. There is history layered underneath that pressure too, and it deserves a moment on its own. Hamilton's most recent Hungarian Grand Prix win came in 2020, and that result also happens to be Mercedes's most recent victory at this circuit. 6 years without a repeat, for either side of Hamilton's own career. His most recent pole position at the Hungaroring came in 2023, before his move to Ferrari was ever finalized. So this is not simply a driver returning to a track that likes him. It is a driver returning to the exact circuit where his old team last tasted victory, now driving for the team that replaced it, trying to prove the 8 wins in his record belong to the driver, and not the car he used to sit in. None of this should be read as certainty that Ferrari's wing solves the problem. The honest version of this story requires sitting with the genuine counter-evidence, and there is real reason for caution here. Charles Leclerc, who has quietly built some of the strongest form on the grid over the last 2 races, with a second-place finish at Spa, following 2 wins in 3 prior races, has specifically warned against assuming a high downforce circuit automatically favors Ferrari. He has pointed directly to Monaco, where Ferrari went in with strong expectations for a downforce-heavy track and came away with a disappointing result instead. If a similar mismatch between expectation and execution happens again in Budapest on the final weekend before the summer break, it would be a difficult note to carry into 6 weeks without racing. There is also the matter of Mercedes' own strengths at this specific track. The Hungaroring rewards a car with a strong, low-speed aerodynamic platform and a stable rear end through slow, technical corners. And Mercedes has reportedly identified exactly that kind of technical advantage heading into this weekend, on the back of Antonelli's 6th win of the season at Spa. A car that has taken pole at every single round this year does not lose that habit by accident, and nothing about a single new wing on a rival car changes the fundamental balance Mercedes has built into their platform over the winter. Some experts covering the sport this week have gone as far as suggesting Hamilton could have one of his worst weekends of the season here, rather than his best, precisely because expectation at his most successful circuit creates its own kind of pressure. It is also worth noting that Mercedes is not arriving in perfect health. George Russell retired on the opening lap at Spa after a loss of boost, separate from an earlier deployment issue, and team principal Toto Wolff has publicly named reliability as the team's clearest weakness this season. Dominance in outright pace and dominance in dependability are two different things, and Mercedes currently only has one of them fully solved. So where does that leave the actual stakes for this weekend, in concrete terms? Ferrari sits second in the Constructors' Championship, 73 points behind Mercedes after collecting 30 points at Spa. Hamilton is second in the drivers' standings, 45 points behind Antonelli, who is already assured of the championship lead heading into the break, regardless of Sunday's result. Leclerc sits further back, 78 points off the pace, though his recent run of results, 2 wins in 3 races prior to Spa, plus a strong second-place finish, suggests a driver finding real form at exactly the moment his team may hand him a faster car. This is round 11 of 24, the last event before the mid-season shutdown, which means whatever happens here is the number every driver, every engineer, and every fan carries through 6 weeks of silence before the sport returns. It's also worth noting that Ferrari is not the only team walking into Budapest with something new. Aston Martin is reportedly set to debut a significant upgrade package across both cars, described as including a lighter chassis and gearbox, along with a rehomologated front end and reworked aerodynamics, in what has been described as a defining moment for the team's season. The stakes there are said to run all the way to Adrian Newey, with reports suggesting he has tied Fernando Alonso's future with the team to what this single upgrade shows on track, after 4 consecutive weekends of qualifying dead last on the grid. McLaren has also introduced new development parts targeting braking and cornering performance specifically for this circuit, while Racing Bulls have handed Liam Lawson the same specification upgrade already run by his teammate at Spa. Ferrari's wing, in other words, is not arriving into a vacuum. It is one storyline among several, all converging on the same twisty, low-grip Hungarian circuit at the same moment, each team betting that this is the weekend its own gamble finally pays off. What can actually be said with confidence, and what remains genuinely uncertain? It is confirmed that Hamilton holds a record 8 wins at the Hungaroring, that his most recent win there came in 2020, that Antonelli leads the championship by 45 points over Hamilton heading into this weekend, and that Ferrari trails Mercedes by 73 points in the constructors' standings. It is confirmed that Ferrari has an upgrade package prepared for this event. What remains speculative, sourced from reporting rather than official confirmation, is the specific performance figure attached to the new wing, the precise mechanical concept behind it, and whether it will even be raced this weekend at all rather than held back again. Ferrari has not officially confirmed the nickname, the numbers, or the final decision to run it. Everything tied to those specifics should be read as informed reporting, not settled fact, until the cars roll out for practice. What happens after Hungary is really the more interesting question. 6 weeks of silence, no running, no data, just whatever conclusions each team carries into the break. If Ferrari's wing performs the way the reports suggest, The story heading into round 12 becomes about whether they can sustain it against a Mercedes car that has been on pole for every single race this year. If it disappoints, or never even appears on the car at all, the story becomes about why a team under this much pressure keeps holding cards it cannot afford not to play, and whether Hamilton's record at this circuit will end up meaning nothing more than a number from a different car in a different era. Either way, this is not really a story about a single Sunday. It's the beginning of the conversation the entire grid will be having when they come back.